Hey, welcome back guys. In this section, let's see how can we integrate TestNG Dataprovider and Excel. Okay, so you might be heard about TestNG Dataprovider and Excel driving data separately. But why do we need to integrate these both? I'm not talking about only this separate topic or Excel driven. In this section, we are going to integrate two different data driven concepts for better and robust automation test building. Okay, now we will see why do we need to integrate these both features to build one more feature. Okay, I'll explain you on high level. So let's say this is our TestNG data provider. So in my next lecture, don't worry, I'm going to explain how this data provider works from scratch with one example. But for now, just assume that if you want to drive the data using TestNG data provider, you will create data provider like this in your test case. Okay, so there are three different arrays here. This is first set of data, which we also call as first array because this is returning multi-dimensional array. This is second set of data. Okay, and this is third set of data. And when you pass this whole data provider to this test, okay, you can simply give knowledge by saying authenticate, something like this. In depth, I will explain you in the next example, in the next video with one live example. Okay, so when you pass this data provider to this test with three different sets of data, now this test case will execute three times. For the first time it will execute with this one set, second time this one set, and third with this data set. So you will see the test output like tests run 3, passed 3, failed 0, or if you see one fail, 2 pass. So basically TestNG will treat it as three separate test cases with three separate set data. Okay, but disadvantage with this is you are hard coding the data in your workspace. Okay, in your Java files you are declaring the data. So some teams may not like to have the data in your Java files. Instead, they want to drive this data from external sources like XML, Excel and JSON. Okay, they don't want to hard code this data in their files. So for that we have a new concept called Excel driven, where you can drive the data. For example, there are three test cases again. First test case have a data like hello text 1. Okay, this is about greeting, this is about how we communicate and ID. Like this we have three different sets of data. Now forget about this data provider. If you want to run this get data with these three sets of data using Excel, okay, you can write some for loop inside it and say count the number of rows you have in the Excel, loop through the rows and complete the test each and every time with each and every data set. You can do like this, but ultimately output you will see as test run 1 only. Okay, if it is passed 1, failed 0. Though it ran three different times, that is inside the test only. Okay, so inside one method we are writing one for loop, and that for loop will do the test three different times with three different sets of data. I agree. For the first, you can write a code in such a way that take the row count of this Excel and do the 3 times iteration, but ultimately whole this code is happening inside one method like this. Okay, so this is the main method get data. Inside this we are looping 3 times. So ultimately your report will be like one test only, and if it's passed, 1 pass, 0 failures. Tomorrow if second data test fail, it will show as whole test as a failure, but it will not give details like with first test data it passed, but with second test data it failed, and third test data it passed. Even one of the three test data fail, whole test will report as failure. because Excel do not have a knowledge of running this whole test 3 different times. Okay, it will run, but it will run inside your method. Okay, but whereas with the TestNG, if you have 3 different sets of data, this have an ability to show in report the test ran 3 different times, and it will give you report for each and every run, how what happened for first data, second data, and third data. With Excel you can ultimately achieve the same thing, but overall report will be showed as only one test pass, because you are writing the code inside the method. But whereas data provider, you are writing the code, you are connecting this data from outside the method. You see that you are connecting this data provider on test outside level, whereas with Excel you will do once you go inside this get data like this. Okay, now by integrating these two features, I want to utilize the features of data provider by having the test runs like this, but instead of hard coding this data here, I want to get this data from Excel to here, so that when I bring this data from Excel and wrapped into this multi-dimensional array, however our TestNG, when we catch this data provider, it will run 3 multiple times and it will have a report like this. So now our main goal is to remove this hard coding and dynamically get this data into this multi-dimensional array from Excel. Pull this data from Excel and place it here. For example, this is one array or one row, right? That should come here, and second row should come here, and third row should come here. If you simply pass the Excel path, that should read this whole content and it should send it here. That's what we are going to achieve. By doing this, we are satisfying the condition of eliminating hard coding the data in Java test files, and also we are utilizing the feature of data provider by connecting the test and running it with 3 different times with 3 different sets, and to get a report of test run 3 instead of 1. Okay, so that's the main importance of integrating these two. And in one of any real-time projects, if they really follow code standards, your manager or your senior software developers will ask you to implement this kind of feature instead of hard coding this, or instead of reporting as one test. So in this section, let's see how to do that both integration. Okay, I hope you realize the importance of doing this. Okay, now first in the next lecture, first of all, let's start by understanding what is data provider and how to do that. Once we are clear with this, in our next lecture, thereafter I will bring this Excel concept and remove these duplicate values and integrate through Excel. Okay, so as a part 1, first let's try to understand what is this data provider and then do this Excel. So let me create new project for this whole assignment, and then we will complete this as 2 parts. First is to start with data provider and then bring the Excel integration into it. Java project, or you can again use the Maven project. Let's go with Maven project again. File, new, select another, so that you should have Maven, we are going to create with a basic archetype. There are multiple archetypes we will have, but we will just start with a quick start artifact ID. So that gives us a basic template which is enough for working with our project. So group ID is all about data driven. Artifact ID is about Excel data provider. You can give any name here, it's up to you. But these are mandatory parameters you have to declare if you are creating Maven project. Click on finish so that it will create a project with architect type name. Okay, so it's taking some time here to create a project with the needed dependencies. Yep, it got created. Now let's start by writing one base test case here. Data provide something like this, and let me click on finish. Okay, so now we know that with the help of TestNG data provider, we can send multiple sets of data to our tests. So each set of data will be represented as one array. Okay, so you need to give each set of data as an array so that your actual test reads that array from data provider and execute the tests. Now if you send five sets of data as 5 arrays from data provider to your tests, then your test will run 5 times with 5 separate sets of data, which are nothing but 5 different arrays. Okay, so that's the whole concept. Now let me create that annotation and declare the set of data which we are interested to. Okay, so public void get data. So move your cursor here and you need to import TestNG. I think TestNG plugin is already there. So when you move your cursor, you should get it. Let's first declare name of the data provider. Then we may get that option to import. Name is to drive test, something like this. Okay, so let me try now. When I write test like this, you can add TestNG library. Give me a second. Eclipse is little unstable today. Yep. Now let me create the test as well. Public void test case data, something like this. Right. Now move your cursor. You will have an option called import data provider so that your error is gone. And let me remove these comments as well now. I just written there to give some basic notes to you. Okay, so save the project and all the errors will go away. And here import test annotation again from TestNG, and this is the basic skeleton. Now I need to send 3 sets of data. So for that, if you are sending multiple arrays, we say that array as a multi-dimensional array. If you are sending single array, it's a single dimensional array. So name itself suggests that. So right now we need to send 3 sets of data. So for that we need to declare multi-dimensional array object. So how do you do that? Let's see. Object data equals to, right. So here these are nothing but arrays. Array 1, which you need to declare, array 2, and array 3. You see that? So these are 3 different arrays we are sending to data object, and then we will pass this data object to the test. So the test will run for first time with this complete data whatever you are passing. For the second time it will run with array of 2, and third time it will run with third array. So in this way we need to achieve. Now instead of, let's put actual data here. We can say hello text. These are actual values of that array. Similarly, you can create array number 2 here with actual content. You can say by message and any random data here as well. Solo call. Okay, what I did now, so I gave real data in these arrays. So this is my first array, and this is my second array, and this is my third array. Okay, and this data object is nothing but multi-dimensional object. Now why I am giving return type as an object here? Okay, so object is a superset of all the data types. So that means your array can be integer array. Okay, your array can be string array. Right now the values what all going into array are hybrid, right? You have an integer, you have a string. So if you declare this whole array as an integer, you will get an error saying that these are strings, you cannot declare. But if you declare your array data type as string, you will get error again because this is not string. So instead, if you put that return type as an object, you can read the description here. Object is the root. Okay, and this is a super class of all subtypes like string, integer, long. For all these data types, this is a superset. So when you declare object, then that will accept any data type. So as we do not know what all values will go in our array, that's the reason we declared an object as a data type which will accept every data type because it's a super class. Okay, now you are clear that you have a 3 arrays with you. Once you have an arrays, you can simply send this object back to your test case to execute, right? So if you want to send any data from that method, you need to write return, so the data will be sent. But you see that there is an error here because you are sending a multi-dimensional array object, right? For that, your return type also should be matching with your multi-dimensional. So here I am saying that I am not returning anything. That's the reason I put return type of this method as a void. When you don't return anything, it will be void. But here you are returning multi-dimensional array from this method. So move your cursor on this and Eclipse will suggest you to change the method return type to object. Okay, so this is what you are sending, right, at the end. So that data type you have to declare in your return type of the method. And all these are Java basics and you should be familiar with that if you are really looking for this kind of role. Nice. Now when you send this, if you want this method to listen to this data provider and the capture data from here, then you have to declare again in your test attribute as well to use this data provider. Okay, so for that you have to write data provider equals to, you have to give the name of which data provider you are listening to. So if you provide information like this in your @test, so your TestNG test will first go to this data provider called drive test and it will capture all the data whatever this is returning for you and it will bring it to this method. So once it brings the whole data, to go inside this method, right now we are sending 3 arguments, right, in one set of array. And I clearly told that when we are sending 3 arrays, every time this test accepts one array at a time. So this test will execute 3 times with 3 different sets. First time with this set, second time with this set, and third time with this set. So to accept this incoming parameter, we have to declare 3 arguments into this method which matches this return type. So first argument in the array is a string, right? So string, you can say any name. It's like, could be greeting. String, and next one is also string. String is, this is communication, it's a text, message or call. And the third one what we are accepting is integer. Integer, you can treat it as ID. One second. Int. Okay. So now when this first array is being called here, this hello text will be stored in this greeting, and this text will be stored in the communication, and one will be stored in the ID, and these 3 arguments with these values will be sent into the method which you want to execute. Now if you say system dot out dot println, and if you try to print greeting, so what's the system dot one second, somehow my Eclipse is very slow today. I think I need to restart it. Greeting, and if you want to print all together, just give concatenation operator to separate each and every variable which you want to print. Perfect. So when we run this test, now this test should run the number of times is equals to the number of arrays defined in the data provider, because we are linking this test with this data provider, right? So when it receives the data from data provider, first it will check how many arrays are defined. If there are 3 arrays defined, this test will run 3 different times. For each time it will capture an array and it will map the values to its arguments. Okay, make sure that arguments whatever you define in this test should match with the arguments declared in an array. Okay, if you declare string here, your first argument should also be string. If you try to put integer, then your test will fail. And also if you declare 3 values in your array, and here also should be 3 arguments. If there are 4 arguments here and if you send only 3 here, even there will be a mismatch and your test will fail. So be careful on that. And now when you run this test, we will see how the output gonna display. Perfect. Tests ran 3 and failures 0. And if you see that hello text 1 is printed in your first run, and by message 143 is printed in your second run, and in the third run the solo call 453 is printed. So we have successfully called this data provider and run test 3 different times with 3 different sets. So that's the concept. So now in the next lecture, instead of writing and hard coding the data in our test script, let's drive this whole data from Excel, and we will read this data from Excel into this data provider, and finally we will send this data from here, so that for each and every run it has to pull the data from Excel and feed it to this data provider, and the data provider will feed it back to the test, and test will execute that. Okay, so let's get started with Eclipse and give the Eclipse knowledge to this project. Okay, so let me quickly go to the google.com and get the Excel dependencies which we need to make that work in our project. So we will be using Apache POI API jars to read the Excel data. Okay, so you need to have some dependencies, some jars to actually support Excel to or Java integration. That is provided by Apache POI API Maven. Okay, so go to their official Maven repositories and you need to add this POI API dependency to your pom.xml, because these will help us to get all Excel related methods to work in our project. So I think we have already added, I think we can remove this JUnit. We are fully dependent upon TestNG, right? So you can get rid of that JUnit, and this is one you need to add, and the next one is just go back to the home folder where Apache POI is present. Yeah, so when you try for Apache POI, there will be one more dependency which you need to download here. Okay, both belongs to same category, Java API to access Microsoft format files. Okay, so in most of the cases these two are sufficient for us. So let's go and grab that dependency as well. Perfect. And right now for TestNG we are depending upon Eclipse plugin. Okay, but you can also add TestNG dependencies and make this project complete Maven portable. Okay, so we are all set. We have all the dependencies which we need to continue now. Let's come back to our project data provider. Meanwhile, let me open an Excel so that I can enter some data there, and we will try to actually call the data into our test. Okay, so we have a data, but we are hard coding them in our tests, right? This hello text and the number. So I'll actually declare something here, greeting, what type of greeting you are doing to your user and what type of communication you are making, and you can give ID. All right, so let's actually make everything string so that it's easy for us to convert them into string formats. Let's also make it string. Right, ID is also string in this case, so you have to update it here as well, because we are now expecting the argument to be type of string. Perfect. So instead of writing it here, let's comment this line and put this data here, hello text ID1. What next? Y message 143 solo call 45. So instead of writing it in the declaring it in the my script, I have declared that in the Excel. Okay, so we can actually save it in the documents saying Excel drive-in. Perfect. Now my test has to run 3 times, and each and every time it has to pick one row. Okay, if you carefully watch your data provider From this we know that data provider treats one complete array for one test, isn't it? So in our case, this complete row is, we have to store it as one array, and this complete row we have to store as one array, okay, and this as one array. So we basically need to store all these three arrays into one multi-dimensional array so that you can send it from your data provider to the test. We have done same thing by manually declaring an array, like this is one array, this is second, and this is third, and we are sending the values to that array. So now we have to create these three arrays, and the values which we are passing to these arrays should come from Excel without hard coding right here. Okay, but at the end we will have to have three arrays if you want to work with it. So you understood one logic, that every row we have to store in one array. Every row of Excel should be sent to one array. Like this we have to have three arrays of multi-dimensional. Okay, so first let's try to implement the logic of reading the data from Excel, right? Now with Apache POI API jars installed, now you can actually call that Excel and get all the data present in that Excel to our script. Now let's see how can we do that. First, to Java you have to tell where that file is located. That you can tell with the help of file input stream class in Java. Okay, so let me write that here. Just follow me. By end of this section you will understand how easy it is to drive the data. Now where is your file located? You have to give the path of that file. Okay, so let's get that path. Copy the path and we can paste it here. Java accepts double slashes, so we are giving double slashes for it. Right, so now we have successfully told to Java that where our file is located. Move your cursor on this to import file input stream of java.io package, and you have to use add throws declaration. Next, you have to define workbook instance. So here Microsoft Excel, right? We are dealing with the Excel here. Excel may also be considered as workbook. Okay, so when we are using Apache POI API, when you define XSF workbook class and you need to pass this file object into that, so that your Java code understands that file whatever you passed is an Excel. Okay, so let me write it here and show you. I'm just creating Excel instance. That can be done with this XSF workbook class, and this class will come with Apache POI API. So now if you send argument of file object into this class, then this Java code treats the file argument, which is nothing but this file, whatever you sending, as an Excel. It recognizes as an Excel if you pass as an argument to this XSF workbook class, which you will get it from Apache POI API. Save that and try to, oh, we did not give new operator. This is how you can declare object of that class, right? Okay, so move your cursor and change it to XSF workbook. Okay, here as well. XSF. Nice. Now this WB object have information about your Excel sheet, and this has a power to read your Excel sheet and get the data. Okay, for now let's change the return statement to void, because we are not returning anything by now. We'll do it by end of this code. Now in this workbook, get me the sheet which is present at the 0th index.
Okay, you can add multiple sheets like what all you need, sheet 1, sheet 2. But if you want the sheet which is present, I mean 0th index, which is the first sheet, you can simply say wb dot get sheet. See, there are a lot of methods here. You can get the sheet by its name. Here our name of the sheet is sheet 1. You can simply say get sheet by name by passing sheet 1 as an argument, and index. When you say get sheet index of 0, it will get the first sheet, and you can also say get sheet at 0th index. Okay, if you ask get sheet at first index, this will be written, sheet 2 will be written. So right now our all the data is present in first sheet, so I am using 0th index. And this get sheet, if you carefully observe, if you whenever you give any method, make sure you watch the return type of that method, so that you need to declare it here, right? XSSF sheet is the return type for that method. Okay, so now when you declare this into variable, you have to provide that return type XSF sheet. This is a return type, and the variable, let's throw that whole sheet data into this sheet variable. Okay, you extracted that sheet data and you are throwing it into one variable called sheet. Now this sheet variable have information about everything which is present in that sheet, right? Now if I want to know the number of rows or number of columns present in that sheet, how do I get that? So here, if you see, there are totally 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 rows are present. How can you get through code on number of rows? You can get it by sheet dot get physical number of rows. When I say physical, whatever rows you can physically see it in the screen. That's it. And the row count is an integer, so you will get it here. Row count equals to total 4 rows are present. Just follow the lecture. You will understand why I am doing all this. By end of this lecture, let's try to wrap up each row as one array. That's our main goal. Even if we do like that, data provider can take this array and give it back to our test. Right. Now how to get columns? This is little tricky. So in general, you can go to any row, and if you can count the number of cells present in that row, which is nothing but columns, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. If there are 4 cells present in one row, that means technically there are 4 columns. But in this Apache Py API, first of all, get any row. Before getting the cell count, you can say get row, whatever. You can take 0th row because that's ideal one. It have headers, right? That will clearly tell how many columns you have. Firstly, I am picking up one excess of row and import this. Now in this row, if you try to get last cell, okay, get last cell number. Here last cell number is 1, 2, 3, 4th is the last cell number, right? Which is nothing but column count. Okay, that's how logically you have to get the column count. There is no such method which directly give you the column count like get physical number of rows. Okay, so smartly you have to take an access to any row. You can get it, but by using sheet.getRow, you can access the whole row. In that row, if you ask to get the last cell index 1, 2, 3, 4, which is 4, and also it's a column count, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's how smartly I grabbed column count as well. Now my purpose here is to iterate through each and every row and take the cell value of each and every row and throw it into one array. Like that, create 3 arrays is my requirement. If I can create 3 arrays like that, it's ultimately it will be like this only. Okay, you see that I created 3 arrays here, 1, 2, 3. So you also have to do it from Excel, and every array you have to pass this data from Excel. So that's what we need to do. For that, first let me declare one multi-dimensional array like this. Object. You know why I am giving return type as object. I told you in our last lecture. Data. This is my multi-dimensional array. Right now we don't know values out of it, so I am just declaring it dynamically. Now you have to give row count. Now we need to give information like how many rows you need. Okay, how many arrays you gonna create. So technically in multi-dimensional array, now total 3 rows you have, right? So that means we gonna create 3 arrays. Okay, so you can say row 3 arrays. We have that count also here, and we don't need the first one because that is a header. So -1. First of all, I am declaring the memory allocation in my multi-dimensional array before I put values in it. And column number, in each array you have 1, 2, 3, right? And you can actually use column. There is an error here. Let's try to fix that. Change type of data. Oh, did I declare 2 like this? Yeah. Let me explain this step. I know some people are not clear with this. So firstly, I am creating a memory allocation to my multi-dimensional array. I need to tell my array how many rows I am expecting to be part of that array. When I say how many rows, it's like how many number of arrays. So in the back end, when you create multi-dimensional array like this, that will treat it as 3 different arrays. Okay, and 3 different arrays, and each array have 3 values out of it. So 3 rows, 3 columns, isn't it? That much space, first of all, you have to create for your object to insert into this object. You see that ideally we have inserted that into this object, right? To insert, first I am giving the memory allocation like this. After allocating, now I will assign one by one. Okay, so how would I now iterate through each and every row of this sheet and put the data? Okay, now in back and multi-dimensional, when I say 0th array, I put I'm asking for 3 rows, right? So that means 3 arrays. 0th array, first array, second array. This is how it will store. And now if I want to grab the hello index, it's like nothing but 0, 0, 0 row, 0 column. If I want to insert text, 0th row, first column, and 0th row, second column, 1 will get stored. And thereafter, I'm just showing how it will store in backend by this multi-dimensional array. And by will be the first row and 0 column. The column number is 0, right? And now first row, first column message will be stored. This is how you need to store now. In the first row, second column. Okay. Now third array again starts from second index, because first row started with 0 index, right? So second row starts with first index, third row starts with second index, 0, 1, 2, and again 2, 0, 2, 1, 2, 2. So this is how you need to now iterate through this and send the data into your array. Now you created multi-dimensional array, and now you have to carefully bring hello from Excel, and you have to place it in this data 0, 0. You can make it small letter. So in data 0, 0, you have to pass this text, and in the data 0, 1, you have to pass text. In data 0, 2, you have to pass 1. If you observe carefully, how can you write logic for this? So you need to write two for loops. One for loop is outer for loop, which will actually increment the row number. Once it is completed 0, it will start 1, then it will start 2. In the column will be the inner for loop. For every outer for loop, iterate 3 times, isn't it? Now again, when it moves to 1, for every outer for loop of 1, iterate 3 times for 0, 1, 2. And for third outer loop, for every outer loop of 2, iterate 0 to 1 to 2 3 times. So basically you need to create outer loop and inner loop. Outer loop will take care of this row and inner loop will take care of its column. This is how you need to build the logic. Okay, so now you have all understood that how we have created a data multidimensional array object. So in the backend it was created like this. So now you have to carefully send all this data inside these values. Okay, and when you store like this and when you put in data provider, this complete first array will be picked by one test and thereafter it will pick second and it will pick third. So this is how the memory allocation was done with this step, and the object for this is data. Now it's time to inject carefully by reading the first row from Excel and insert them in the first array. Right. So we will start with using for loop int I equals to 0, I less than row count -1 because here we are starting with 0 index. So that's the reason. I plus plus. Just follow my lecture carefully and by end of this lecture you will have very clear information of what you are doing. J less than column count J plus plus. Right. So here sheet dot get me the row of I. I'll write this step. So I don't want sheet dot get row of 0th, because when I put 0th here, 0 value, I will get this header values, right? So this is lying in the 0th row, 0th index. I don't want this. So what I will do, I'll put I plus 1. So when I try to ask 0th, 0 plus 1, sheet dot get me the row of first row in Excel. So obviously all these will be extracted and we can carefully store them in row. You can simply put row equals to sheet dot get row of 1. So now we have got a row with complete first. Now thereafter for every row get cell. How to get the cell value? Okay, now when you do get cell and when you pass the index, it will try to get the cell number which is present in that index for that particular row. So with this step, when the loop started for first time, okay, watch carefully now, observe carefully the explanation what I am giving now. Okay, so when loop started, 0 will go inside, right? I equals to 0. Get row of 0 plus 1 I am doing, which I will get this one, because this is 0th index, this is first index. The whole row will be captured and placed in the row method. And now in this row we have a method called get cell. So when I say row dot get cell, now our row is this one, right? Get cell of, the first time when it goes inside, j equals to 0. Get cell of 0. Okay, in this row get cell of 0, which is nothing but this hello. So hello is extracted now. Okay, we have successfully extracted hello. If you print this, now what happens? Hello will be printed in the output. And next iteration, Now this is outer loop and this is inner loop. It will go to outer loop only when complete inner loop is done. Okay, now inner loop just started. Now we are asking to do this till the column count. Now next time when loop start repeated in innerly, j equals to 1 now. So that means row of get cell of 1, which is text, and text will be printed. Now loop will again repeat because we are asking to do this till less than column count. So this one also will be there. So row dot get cell of 2, 1 will be taken and 1 will be printed in the output. Done. Now hereafter inner loop is completely repeated 3 times. Now it will start again with outer loop. I equals to 0 is done, right? Now it will come as I equals to 1. Get row of I is 1, 1 plus 1, 2. This time it will pull the second row. I am asking get row of 2, which is 0, 1, 2. So this whole row will be again captured in this row. Now when I say row, which is nothing but this one. Now again it will go to inner loop. Inner loop starts with j equals to 0. Now this in this whole row dot get cell of 0, which is nothing but by. This will be grabbed and it will only go to the outer loop once the whole inner loop is done. Now get cell of 1, message will be printed and then 143 will be printed. Every column count is done, right? Now loop also it will come outside. Now next time it will start for this row. So like this we are carefully grabbing each and every value in this order. Hello text 1, outer loop is done, and again inner loop rotates for by message 143 is done, it will go to outer loop. So like this we will slowly, we are capturing, right? Once we capture, we smartly put in our data multi-dimensional array. So before we put, let's print and see how it is printing. System dot println. So we will see if we are able to capture all the values from here and we are able to print it in the output or not. If we can capture all the values, our next step is to move these captured values in these places, in these areas, so that it will be treated as multidimensional. But I cannot run this here. This is not at the rate test annotation, right? I'll do one thing. Let me create one more new class and I'll declare it there. Excel. I know things are a little complicated here. Yes, let it be, because you are aiming for a big role of architect. Get Excel. So we are iterating and bringing the Excel content and placing it into multi-dimensional array, which is not easy. Okay. So if you can understand that, then you are very good at arrays. Okay, so I have to add all this throws declaration. We are testing this code in units, okay, without testing the whole code. Block by block we are testing to making sure that if we are doing in right way. Our main goal is to first capture the values from the Excel, and let's run this program and see if we are able to do that. Once we confirm that is success, then we'll place it in the array. Okay, so you see that hello text 1 by message 143, everything is printed in the order. This is the first outer loop. Okay, this is the second loop. I can put some message here. Outer loop started, so that you will clearly know how that carefully grabbing each and every row, and once we are done, I will say outer loop ended here. Okay, run this program again. You see that outer loop started, it prints hello text 1, and again first row is completely done. So that's why I'm saying outer loop is giving row wise, inner loop is giving column wise. Okay, so again outer loop started, it prints the whole row. So now our duty is to capture one complete outer loop row into one complete array like this. And whenever it's looping for second time, we have to capture it in second array. And I think you know why I am storing it in multi-dimensional array. Because if you want to integrate that with TestNG Dataprovider, you have to do like this. Then only you can pass this multi-dimensional array back to your test, isn't it? So that's the reason we are doing this. Okay. And now if you observe carefully, I equals to 0 for first outer loop, and then 0 will be inside this, j equals to 0, and till column count this j only will increment, I will be constant. So if you see here, for the first time it will be 0 comma 0, and next time 0 comma 1, j will be incremented as we are in inner loop. So in 0 comma 1 text will fall, and then next time 0 comma 2, 1 will fall here. Thereafter loop is done, we again start with outer loop, this time I equals to 1. So that's why I am putting it here. So data 1, so j equals to 0, data 1 comma 0, this will fall here, and this loop will continue 1 comma 1, 1 comma 2. Everything will be placed here in this second array. And when you start with third for loop, which is nothing but I equals to 2, and here I will be turned as a 2, which is nothing but 2, and again this will start freshly, j equals to 0, 2 comma 0, 2 comma 1, 2 comma 2. So the order how we are printing it, we can carefully store them in one multi-dimensional array by simply creating it here and using data of I comma j. That's it. Now when you run this program, whole array will be stored in this data, which is nothing but this one. Okay, so here we hard coded all the values and we inserted them in multi-dimensional array. Instead, now you have brought this from Excel, and at the end you are storing it into that multi-dimensional array only. So this one step is nothing but this whole method by bringing it from Excel.
Yeah. So one more thing, you need to actually do some formatting here. So Excel may have integers, strings, or double, number, any data type, right? But when you put it into TestNG Dataprovider and when your method is catching it, you are clearly telling that it should be string only. So how do you do that format? So let's do one formatting here. So after you grab the data from Excel, before you store it into your multi-dimensional array, let's format that and make sure that it converted into string, no matter if it is integer or double. So ultimately we will convert that into string and we send it to our multi-dimensional array so that it takes care of handling the data provider. So there is one class called data formatter. Defined by Apache POI only. So let me formatter, let me create object of that class. Okay, so this object formatter, whatever you are seeing here, you need to import this package, data formatter. Okay, now bring this object, and here before you store it into, first of all, the value whatever you grabbed, store it in the cell equals to, and the cell value return type you can get it in that method only, xsf cell. Okay, so now we will have formatter dot
format cell value and pass the cell inside it. That's it. And you can add this data I of j or cut it and put it here. Perfect. Got this right? So first of all, you are grabbing the cell value for each and every row, and that cell value you are formatting in this way such that it will convert it into string no matter what data type you have in the beginning. Ultimately, it will convert into string and it will store in multi-dimensional array. So just like how we have done this, we are doing it through our for loop, and now you are all set. So once everything is ready, after you complete your outer loop, send this data. Okay, so then move your cursor on this and tell that change method return type to object. You see that? Now the return data, however we are passing this data provider, we are doing same thing here as well after we inject all our Excel data into our multi-dimensional array, and you are all set. That's it. So this data provider drive test is being used by this method test case data, which is our actual test case. Now you don't have any hard coding here. You can remove this whole code and make it more clear. So in the last previous lectures, we have hard coded everything and sent the data from our Java test files. Your client may not be satisfied if you hard code the data in your class files. Instead, you have a data in your Excel, and now you are running it. You are running this test 3 different times with the 3 different sets of data. Okay, but as I said in the beginning of this section, if you try to put for loop and read the each and every row here, ultimately it will report as only one test. Though it run for 3 sets of data, report will be as one test. But with this data provider, you will have the report as total 3 test cases ran, and for each test case ran, it will also give the data what all it is taking. Okay, so let's run this test and see how it goes. Fingers crossed. If there is something wrong, we can fix it obviously. Perfect. All the 3 tests ran. You see that? And hello text 1 by message 143 solo call 453. The similar output what we get earlier by hard coding, now we have achieved by connecting this whole test with Excel. So that's the beauty of integrating your Excel with the data provider. And now you see that you have 3 tests ran. Okay, so if you don't bring this data provider concept, though you can still loop here the Excel data, but you will end up having only one test. So you will clearly know now which test passed, which test failed. So once you have this data with you, you can use your Selenium simply here by driver.findElement by send keys, and you can send this greeting communication into that. Okay, I'm just explaining you the core concept. Once you have the data with you, you can use it for whatever needs you want in your Selenium WebDriver test. That's it guys. So that's how you can work, and this is the hottest combination, trust me. And this will really give you the edge if you try to implement this in your company, and all the best for doing that. I have attached the code to download in the next lecture. You can play with that and utilize it whenever you come to a situation to use this. Okay, thank you.